Hey guys, what's going on? It's your girl LT, Childfree LT. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I have a very special guest with me today. I have Miss Ann Jackson. I have her on my channel. She reached out to me. She is a child-free Black woman, as you can clearly see, and she reached out to me because she wanted to be interviewed for my channel. Y'all, she is 70 years young. Can y'all believe? Look at how gorgeous she is. Okay, she is so beautiful, and I'm so
You're
happy to
so
have her on my
nice.
channel today. We're gonna
Thank
go
you.
ahead and just discuss with her her child-free journey, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, everything in between. And I'm just so glad that she's on here today. So, Anne, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So how would you describe yourself as a child-free woman, and just overall, how has life been for you?
Hmm. Life for me has been what I wanted it to be. Of course, like most Americans, I want more money, but I do have everything I want. I've been an avid reader since I was very young. I love travel. I love food, and I've been a chef. I've had catering businesses. I am a baker. I am a writer. I've been able to pursue everything I thought I wanted to pursue because I was single and child free.
Absolutely. That's so great. So, what has been your earliest recollection of either wanting kids or not wanting kids? Like, when did you know that being child free was probably be the best option for you?
Well, I knew when I was very young, even before I turned 6 years old, they always buy little girls' dolls. And I hated dolls because number one, most
Hmm.
of them didn't look like me. And
Hmm.
so when you tried to do their hair, I mean, you can do a doll's hair one time when I was growing up, and that was it. The doll was going to be looking really crazy. Plus, the dolls used to have they would come with a bottle, the little baby bottle that you could
Hmm.
fill with water, and the doll had a little hole in their mouth, and
Hmm.
you put that little bottle in the doll's mouth, and it just runs out, and you just got a wet lap, and this thing was like, who the hell thinks this is fun,
Right.
and I didn't
Yeah.
like it, and I remember, and my mother remembered until the day she passed, that I told her very um uh forcefully, don't get me any more dolls. I don't like them. I don't
Right.
like them. And to realize later on that that's a part of grooming for young girls, particularly young Black girls, always teaching you how to take care of something other than
Mhm.
yourself.
Oh,
And so those messages came later on, but I'm glad that it was already in me. And when I knew when I was very young, I didn't want children. And to acknowledge it and accept it, it gave me a level of comfort that I've always moved about in the world with, because I knew that that wasn't for me. So it wasn't up for discussion. I wasn't struggling inside of myself about it. I knew, and I was just carrying on.
okay. So being from a Black culture, what has been your positive or negative experiences being child free around your family or your friends or even your colleagues?
Well, my friends were wonderful. Some were married, some were not, some were single moms. I chose not to be either of those, but it was with family and the church. Plus, I'm from the West Coast, but I live down south. I've lived in two major southern cities, and I'm telling you, Black folks can be relentless about this thing.
Oh yes.
They say, oh, the Bible says be fruitful and multiply. And so
Hmm.
as I, educated myself and come along, and I do have a list, but one of the things is that consider the source of any person that is telling you what you need to do with your body.
Hmm.
You don't even have to take it in. You don't even have to listen to them, but consider the source. I have
Hmm.
found that there are a lot of people, men and women, who want to see other Black women in this bag, or other
Hmm.
women, period, because whether it is spoken or not, there is cultural zeitgeist that women
Hmm.
should not be free and own their own bodies and own their own minds and the ability to think and move about in the world in the way that they want to. And we get these messages all over the place, but I don't know, maybe I just was born a little hellion. I was always kind of resistant to those ideas because they didn't fit with who I knew I was supposed to be. And
Hmm.
so it was tough, but I like standing, 10 toes down.
Hmm.
So that's what
Absolutely.
I've done.
Has your parents ever dropped hints to you that they wanted for you to have kids?
Hints. They just came
Hmm.
straight out and said it, you know. And even and actually, I had to get over it because that was I went through a period where I was very resentful because I was always an avid reader, a very inquisitive child, excellent student, and I've got the receipts to prove it.
Hmm.
And all they ever wanted from me was to be somebody's wife and mother. I am an excellent cook. I am an excellent housekeeper. I was close to my mother and I was with her all the time. My mother is one of 8 girls. I mean, I can bake from scratch. I've been baking from scratch since I could stand on a stool. I
Hmm.
have been, you know, when I was 11 years old and my mother was in the hospital, I made Thanksgiving dinner. I was 11 or 12 years old, and I'd also mean turkey, Cornish hens, dressing, German chocolate cake, peach
Hmm.
cobbler. 11 years old. When the
Hmm.
neighbors came over, they were like, "Who cooked all this food?" I was groomed to be a wife and a mother, and
Hmm.
no one cared about anything else that I wanted to do except me. And I had this double-edged sword because I was raised as a Catholic, which was predominantly white, went to
Hmm.
predominantly white schools, and
Hmm.
they also have a role that they think girls should play, and particularly black girls. You're not even as good as a little white girl when I was going to Catholic school. And
Hmm.
so I was always getting messages that I wasn't that, there wasn't much for me out there in life. But hey, they made a mistake when they taught me to read because it was on and cracking then. I could find out about the world on my own, which helped me to find out about myself on my own. And so reading is more than just fundamental. It has been paramount in my life.
Absolutely. So, have you thought about getting any procedures done if you currently do not have one to make sure that you didn't have kids, prior?
Well, I'm beyond childbearing age now, but when I
Right.
was,
Right.
within that window, I
Uh-huh.
never thought about getting anything done to my body except taking care of it. I've never been the type of person that just had to have a man just for the sake of having, being in a relationship. If I were in a relationship, I'd take all of the necessary precautions, without negotiation because I knew what I wanted and what I did not want as far as that went. And so, no, I never considered it. And, no judgment on any woman who does, but that wasn't even an option for me because, just
Mhm.
didn't matter.
Okay. So society has rules and maybe it may be an agenda, about certain topics or issues. So what are your thoughts about how child-free women are portrayed in society?
You know, um, how are child-free women portrayed in this society?
Hmm.
That's an interesting question because I know what I see in the real world, but I'm very concerned about the images that women, particularly Black women, get through social media, through television shows, and a lot of the reality shows. I mean, a lot of the programming that is designed for Black women, written by Black women, by the way, and even
Hmm.
produced by Black producers, all have most of them, and I know a lot of them are dated and old now, but they still exist. They're still in heavy rotation. You have a television show like The Parkers,
Hmm.
where this woman is chasing a man who tells her he does not want her. He's
Hmm.
very, very adamant about it. He's not even kind about it,
Hmm.
and she still chases him until at the end of the series, I think they end up together or something like that. You have this other show,
Hmm.
Girlfriends, where
Right.
you have these women that are very accomplished, an attorney, a real estate broker, and whatever, and all they care about is you ain't getting none, and you ain't got no man, and I need a man, and I need to, and you see these bright, intelligent women making fools of themselves because they've perceived this message that they are not good enough without men. And so these are sitcoms, but they go out into the real world, and I'm concerned that young women see these things and actually believe that they have no value or worth because they are single and child free. That's
Hmm.
not a judgment on women who want to be married and have children. I think that's wonderful. I have wonderful friends and relatives who have beautiful families, single moms and, married women. And I think it's wonderful. And I don't disparage it. I just know that it's not for me. And it's not for a lot of women. And they shouldn't be made to feel, badly about themselves because they want something different than what the status quo wants.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems to me, especially like those shows you just mentioned, it seems like a lot of these TV shows is always ending with somebody getting pregnant. Like I can't recall one show that somebody who was child free and stayed child free the whole season or the whole series, and they were like, they had something else unexpectedly happen to them or something like that, something great happened to them at the end.
Absolutely.
It's always a baby. It's like, can y'all just like
Absolutely. There is no happy ending without a wedding and a baby in these worlds, and
right.
it doesn't work like that for
Hmm.
most women. There's one I think it's The Game where,
Yeah.
the women and those women really do crazy things in order
Hmm.
to be, to have, partners and children. And I just don't think that all of that is necessary in real life. But those messages exist, and a lot of people absorb them and take them in and believe that's the way it's supposed to be. That's one of the reasons that I'm here doing this interview with you.
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, so have you ever considered adoption? Like, years prior, did you ever consider adoption in case if you didn't
No.
want to have a baby? Okay.
No, I didn't want babies, doll babies, real babies. I just didn't want them. And I
Hmm.
love children. I have,
Yeah.
nieces, nephews, godchildren, nieces and nephews. I have all of that. But I wanted, I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to learn. I always wanted to go to colleges and universities and study things. And, I was very much into geography when I was a little girl and as an adult. Did you know that Michael Jordan majored in geography in college? I
Oh,
mean,
really?
nobody would even, yes, Michael Jordan was a geography major in
Hmm.
university. But I always loved geography and literature. Literature, books saved my life. And so I always just wanted the world. I wanted to be out in it. I wanted to be a global citizen, which I'm
Hmm.
happy to say that I am. And no, I just knew what my course, even when I didn't know exactly what my course was, I knew what it wasn't supposed to be,
Hmm.
which is half the battle right there.
Right. So, I don't know if you're with somebody or not, and we had like prior discussions, so I know if you're with somebody or not. But let's talk about a little bit about child free and dating. So I think a lot of people are having a hard time right now. I think dating period is hard no matter what your age. But have you ever had a hard time, dating while you were child free? Like if you come across guys who wanted kids, but you told them that you didn't, and was that an issue for them, or how was the dating market for you being child free?
Well, I've always been very clear about that.
Hmm.
And I have dated a couple of men who had children. Their children weren't living with them, but they were very active in the lives of their children.
Hmm.
But they were, I wouldn't call them weekend dads because they were very involved in a lot of things, but their children just did not live with them,
Hmm.
and that was okay. But no, I never had a problem with that. You'd be surprised at how many men don't want children. You really would be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah.
But I mean, they succumb to the cultural zeitgeist just as we do. Yeah, and for them, it's okay if they have three or four babies with three or four different women.
Hmm.
I mean, a
Yeah.
woman would be judged very harshly for that. But if a man does that, if that is his contribution to society, then he gets a little pat on the back and a little nudge, like at least he
Hmm.
got it in.
Yeah.
He's not judged in the way that a woman would be judged.
Mhm. Yeah, for real. So, but yeah, like I said, I think dating period is just hard for everybody nowadays. So, but I know especially being child free that it's hard to find a companion that you can actually be on the same page with that. And it's just, and I see a lot of couples that are like, they're together, but they're only together because they have kids together. So you can tell that they just don't need to be together. And then other people who are with somebody because they just don't want to be alone. They're like, I'm tired of being single. I don't care if this person wants a child. I'm willing to give them that. But deep down your heart, you don't want to be a parent. Then it stems up from a whole lot of different issues later on down the road too. So but yeah, I think but yeah, I know choppy people sometimes have a hard time dating, but just gotta keep our stance. If that's something that you don't want, don't have a baby just because somebody else wants one, because then you're not gonna be happy later on down the road too. So
Exactly, exactly. And again, too. every woman or every man doesn't walk around with the desire that they have to be, married or booed up with someone. I
Mhm.
like I like the only voice in my head being my own. I like making my decisions and doing what I want to do. I have friends, I have male friends, I have all kinds of friends, and I have friends all over the world, which is really wonderful too. But everyone is not wired that way, and I just wasn't. That's the
Right.
truth of it. It's not like I took some stance that, oh, I don't like men and this and that. No, it was none of that.
Mhm.
I like men. I love some men, as a matter of fact. And I don't judge, a family structure, but I just always knew that that wasn't for me, and I was comfortable with it. I
Mhm.
like being alone. I like going places on my own. I travel outside of the country by myself,
Mhm.
and it's a blast. I mean, it would be hard for me to even allow someone to come with me because I have such an incredible time. I meet people, and when I don't want to engage, I don't.
Mhm.
And so, I like having choice, which is
Mhm.
all anybody really wants, right?
Right. For sure. So,
Yeah.
okay. So we have different Childfree stereotypes. So we always get the reputation of, oh, you're child free. That means you hate kids, or you're child free. That means you don't want the responsibility and things like that. And just all different types of stereotypes. So is there a certain stereotype of being child free that you don't fit in?
Oh yeah, you know what? I made a note about a couple of things on that because
Uh,
I'm not the one is that, oh, she's such a nice lady. She's so pretty. She just never met the right man so that she
mhm.
could get married and have kids. That's never been me. That's never
Mhm.
been me. And another stereotype is like, of someone who hates women and children, and we've already addressed that.
Mhm.
And or that you're going to be a dog or a cat lady
Mhm.
because you haven't built relationships with other human beings. And I'm here to tell you, once I decide to stop traveling and to really just stay put in a place and do less, I'm
Mhm.
gonna be a dog lady. I already have two dogs on my list, and I haven't decided a couple of breeds that I really, really love. I love huskies because they like to talk smack. But and so I
Oh
can't
my
wait to
gosh.
be a dog lady.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Huskies. I see some on YouTube. I'm like, man, they got some personalities for
Oh
sure.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Have you seen them when they're in the snow and they don't want to come in the house? You should
Mhm.
see those. They are crazy. And I love dogs. I love animals, period.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but I have two dogs in my future.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, have you ever experienced any discrimination being child free in your job?
Oh, sure, sure.
Hmm.
When you're single and child free, I don't know how it is now,
Hmm.
but in the time that I was, particularly in corporate America, they'd say, "Oh, you don't have kids or anything. Can you do this? Can you fill in for me? Can you do this? Or I have to leave early." So you end up doing other people's work. But
Yeah.
I find a way, I actually used to find a way to keep myself so busy because I didn't want to be resentful. I don't believe in taking on resentment,
Mhm.
because if you do something that you don't want to do, you're going to be resentful about it. So the thing to do is to find a way not to do it so that you don't have to do the work of getting rid of the resentment. And so I would just, position myself in such a way that I just took care of my own business and my own work, and I didn't feel guilty about keeping my time to myself. That's what it was all about, right? So
Right.
I keep my time to myself. You decide that you want to dispense your time in this way. God bless, but don't infringe upon me because you don't have enough time. So,
Exactly.
yeah, and so even when I used to work and they would say, when I was not an exempt employee, and they'd say, "Oh, you can get overtime." I would always take the comp time. I know because
Mhm.
the money was not as important to me as the time.
Mhm.
Time is one of the things. I mean, you might know how much money you have in the bank, but you don't know how much time you have. And so time is a very precious commodity. And so I just learned to treat mine as such. It's
Mhm.
very, very valuable. I can waste it, but you can't, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So some people may think that if you don't have kids by a certain age, that something is wrong with you. So how do you respond to people like that who, I mean, you're 70 years young, but like, let's say 20, 30 years ago, and people are like, "Oh, if you don't have kids by a certain age, you regret it," but you're thriving at 70. So,
Yeah, well, my Uncle John used to say, you can't do a damn thing about what other people think. which is
Right.
totally true.
Hmm.
And even in some of the metaphysical studies that in spiritual metaphysical studies that I've been involved in over the years, um, I came to understand that, thoughts are things, and
Hmm.
you don't have to entertain anyone else's thoughts. You can dismiss something right away. You know, I don't know why. It's really amazing to me why people concern themselves like that, because I've never once, not once, have I ever said to a woman, "Why you having all them kids? Ooh, why you marrying him?" But
Hmm.
people feel so totally emboldened and free to ask me why I haven't done particular functions with my body,
Hmm.
and so it's insulting. It used to be insulting, but now I just don't even entertain it. I mean,
Hmm.
and I started to get to, a little snippy where they say, well, when you gonna get married? I said, well, when you getting a divorce? You know, you up in my business, let's get in yours.
Right.
But
Hmm.
I would rather not do that. I don't do that anymore, but I did go through a phase because I had an uncle who used to say every time he saw me, when we cutting cake, he means wedding cake.
Right. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
so I would say when you're getting a divorce, when you
Hmm.
have, I would say things like that to him, and it would just throw them off, and the
Hmm.
subject was done. I mean,
Right.
everybody has to find their own way to do that, but that was one of mine back in the day. I don't even do that anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a couple of subscriber questions, so I want to go ahead and get those in. I think one of the questions you actually already talked about discrimination at the job, so I want to ask that again. So one of the questions was asked was, I would like to know her answer to the question that everyone has asked us child-free folks. What plans does she have in place for if or when she is no longer able to care for herself?
Well, I don't have a plan for when I am not able to take care of myself. I have a plan to take care of myself, which is
Hmm.
what I do now.
Hmm.
I watch what I eat, I get exercise, I watch my thoughts,
Hmm.
I watch the company that I keep. I don't overindulge in drinking or smoking or anything like that. I get mine in, but I mean, with moderation.
Hmm.
And I just live a very good, positive life,
Hmm.
and actually, just like I knew that I was not going to be married and have children, I know that I know inside of myself that I will not have a long extended illness or anything like that, that I will be able
Hmm.
to take care of myself to the very end. Part of that is that I come from uh, a long line of longevity in my family on my
Hmm.
father's side. We have many people who live to be into their 90s and into their 100s. And I even knew that as a little girl that I would have a very long life. You know,
Hmm.
and everybody talks about relying in their spirit life and everything, but I also believe that there is mercy with, those, to those whom we bow to, your
Hmm.
God or your goddess. And so I
Right.
believe in the mercy of God. Now, don't get me wrong. I have lots of cousins and friends who are single, and we all have agreements to take care of each other. I took care of, like, Neptune Society to make sure I'm cremated. I have, my little cousin and my BFF for over 50 years. Me and one of my girls, we've been friends for over 50 years.
Hmm.
We've been through everything together. And she was married and raised two beautiful grown sons.
Hmm.
So we all have agreements as to how we will take care of each other. We all know what we want each other to do, and so it's just that. I don't sit around worrying about when I die.
Right. Exactly.
I
So,
I
um,
keep living.
oh, absolutely, you have to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and another question a subscriber asked, has anyone ever told you that you resemble Natalie Cole?
Well,
Yeah.
that is very kind. A lovely compliment. I've heard that I look like a lot of people. Some people have said Aretha Franklin, Oprah, Dawn Lewis,
Hmm.
whomever. I just have a familiar face. But I
Hmm.
do love Natalie Cole. I always have.
Hmm.
And, not to sound conceited or anything, but I always thought she was so beautiful and so
Hmm.
elegant. I absolutely loved Natalie Cole.
Absolutely. Yes, she's definitely beautiful. Um,
Okay.
let's see, I think there's one more.
Okay.
Let's see. I think you mentioned a little bit about it earlier. So it says, please ask her, how did she manage to get through all the stigma from religious Black folks always asking about having children? This bothers me to no end. I think you touched bases on that earlier. I think you did mention that about
Yeah,
church.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And everyone, you can either not entertain it or you can just mirror what they are asking you. When are you going to have some children? Your counter? How come you got so many? You
Right.
know, or whatever it would be, because sometimes you just need to get people up off you. I understand that. I understand how it is. I mean, I don't, deal with that anymore. I mean, I'm harshly judged, but I
Hmm.
don't care. I don't care. Because one of the things that I've seen about that is that oftentimes these people are not happy and they
Hmm.
want you to be kind of in this club where you commiserate together. I know my mother and her friends, were always on the phone talking about, the marriages and husbands and what they did or what they didn't do and how they negotiate and all these other sorts of things. It just didn't seem like a good way to live.
Hmm. Right.
Not for me. Not
Hmm.
for me. I don't know. Did I answer that question for you?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Okay, yeah, you don't even have to entertain someone asking you that. But go ahead
Hmm.
and get snippy because yeah, go ahead and take a little license with it and get snippy because they aren't certainly, respecting your boundaries when someone would ask you something like that. I did a couple of preps for
Hmm.
this interview, and one of
Uh-huh.
the things that I did, I created a list, and this is just off the top of my head, of
Okay.
child-free notables,
Uh-huh.
child-free people.
Hmm.
And I want your subscribers to know that there's a history of people who have been child-free. And there's another, remind me when I read this list to get back to history because there's something I wanted to point out. Okay,
Hmm.
child-free notables.
Hmm.
Zora Neale Hurston, Oprah Winfrey, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, Vivica A. Fox, Sonia Sotomayor, Supreme Court, Tracy Ellis Ross, Star Jones, Elena Kagan, another Supreme Court Justice, Stevie Nicks, Christine McVie, Tracy Chapman, Edgar Allan Poe, Diane Fossey, Octavia Butler, Octavia Spencer, Shirley Chisholm, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Jesse Norman, Judith Jamison, Ellen DeGeneres, Lily Tomlin, Johnny Mathis, Roberta Flack, Kim Cattrall, Joan of Arc,
Hmm.
George Washington, yes, that George Washington, James
Hmm.
Madison, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, Caesar Augustus, Gianni Versace, Gloria
Hmm.
Steinem, Leonardo DiCaprio, Pope Francis, Cynthia Erivo, Lena Waithe, Lindsey Graham, Plato, Marilyn Monroe, Billy Strayhorn, Bayard Rustin, Queen Elizabeth I, Paul the Apostle, and
Hmm.
Jesus the Christ.
Hmm.
Jesus the Christ did not have children. In his
Hmm.
time, in his day, a man married when he was like 18 years old and a girl was around 15. Jesus died at the age of 33 and he didn't have children and he didn't have a wife. And if you look into the historical Jesus, you will find that to be so. So, you know, uh, if there's one argument for not having children, just say Jesus didn't do it and he turned out fine. Or the other thing that you can say is just like Jesus, I got shit to do. Everybody doesn't want
Hmm.
to, to be a mom and a wife or whatever, and it's totally okay. And you're in good company if that's where you are. These people did great things, without children.
Hmm. Oh yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't realize the list was that long. I mean, I know some celebrities that were child free and they mentioned why their reasons, but I didn't realize there's so many other people like that. So that's so interesting.
Oh, that's just off the top of my head. If I were to do a
Yeah.
deep dive, I'd be so, much more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. So and so this is the last question. So what kind of advice would you give a young man or a woman who is on the fence about having children because they are either getting pressure from family or society and etc. So do you have any advice from somebody who may be on the fence about having kids?
Yes. for men, men have a longer window in which they can do that. And so I really, can't speak to that.
Hmm.
But for women, I think that, the optimal age is when, you look it up, they say it's between the ages of, late teens and late 20s. So between like 17 and 30 years old, they say that's the optimal window for a woman to have children. And, some women go beyond that, and that's fine. But what I would say is that if you're on the fence about it, go about your business and go about your career, but revisit it every couple of years to
Hmm.
see where you are with it. Your life may change, or your life may be progressing in a way where you might decide you want to stop and have children and take another direction. So between the ages of 17 and let's say even 35, if for a woman, just go about your life and do what you want to do and revisit that question. And at some point, you're going to have to settle on whether it's no, I'm not going to do it, or yes, it's time to get started. And so, I mean, I think that that's, fair and reasonable advice, you know?
Hmm.
hmm
Absolutely.
Uh,
So great. So, okay. So,
one more
before
thing.
we close, I wanted to give you give you time to promote anything you have going on. If you want to say any shout outs, if you have any social medias or anything like that, let's
Okay.
go ahead and we'll get that on here. So, if there's anything you want to promote, I know you sent me some stuff. If anything you want to mention before we close,
I would like to mention one thing because we didn't talk about it very much, but the idea of legacy.
right?
That's a big thing, and I hear more men speak about it than women. So what I
Right.
did and what I would like to read to you again
Yes.
is
Sure.
the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of legacy. A
Okay.
gift by will, especially of money or personal property, a bequest, something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or from the past. No mention of DNA. A candidate for membership in an organization such as a school or fraternal order who is given special status because of a familial relationship. That's like a legacy entrance into a school or university or whatever.
Hmm.
A legacy has nothing to do with the sperm you donate or the DNA you leave behind. It
Hmm.
has to be something more tangible, something that actually helps to progress your lineage, your family, your tribe. It is
Hmm.
not just the simple existence that you help to procreate another human being. So for women out there who are thinking that, if they don't do that, that you have no legacy, au contraire, you have
Hmm.
quite a legacy to create and contribute. And on that note, in ancient Greece, there was a philosophy that people who were single and had no children, primarily men, were actually of greater benefit to the state because they did not have the distractions. And the ancient Greeks also believed that procreation was an expression of ego.
Hmm.
Not that you're doing something so wonderful, but the idea, the desire that you want to see someone else walking around that contains a part of the self, which is ego.
Right.
So anyway, there's more than one way to look at, our status and our condition in 21st century
Hmm.
America.
Oh, well said. Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned about the question about legacy. Like you mentioned, it's a lot more legacy. I think is also always mentioned with men instead of women all the time. But I'm glad that you broke it down and explained like, hey, legacy actually means this because I think a lot of
Yes,
people have it confused on what legacy really is. Like, let me go ahead and pop out a chalk, and that's my legacy. It's like a lot of
yes,
people these days, especially with the way that the world is and how society is, a lot of people don't have that great of a legacy to really leave somebody. So
exactly,
it's like,
exactly.
yeah. So I'm really glad that you explained it, you broke it down clearly, and hopefully that'll be hopefully people can better understand it, and that way you can and understand to know that you don't have to have a child to leave some kind of an impact or some kind of legacy into this world. So
As a
I
matter of fact, your chances are greater if you do not have a child to leave a legacy. This is what the ancient Greeks were doing. Oh, and another thing, sidebar. In the
Mhm.
persecution of single child-free women, do you
Mhm.
know that during the Salem witch trials, that most of the women, 92% of the women that were tortured and hung as witches were single child-free women. They had either inherited property from their fathers and brothers because women couldn't, but if the father is dead and the brother is dead and you have no husband and you have this property, then all of a sudden you become a target of suspicion. in a
Mm-hmm.
society. And then somebody might see you boiling a pot of laundry in the front yard and they're saying you've got a cauldron and you're putting, making a witch's brew or some sort of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so this persecution of single child-free women is nothing new, and I don't know if it's ever going to change, but it has a very, very deeply entrenched history, particularly in America, and it's all tied up with religion as well. So, that's just another thing that I want, the viewers, your subscribers to be aware of, that you're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
and at least they're not burning us at the stake or hanging us for choosing to remain, child-free.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, once again, though, before we go, did you have anything else that you want to promote or anything else you wanted to say before we close?
Well, I've recently had a couple of pieces published. One in Black Stack magazine. It is a work of nonfiction. I wrote a collection of short stories called The Religion of Slaves, and one of my stories is in the new Black Stack magazine, the January 2025 issue. And I've recently had an essay published in African Writer magazine, that is an online magazine, and it is a work of nonfiction entitled Father. I hope your subscribers take a moment and take a look at that. Also, I'd like to recommend a book for
Mm-hmm.
women, Black women, white women, any women, but
Mm-hmm.
it's one of my favorite authors. Her name is J. California Cooper, and the
Mm-hmm.
name of the book is called A Piece of Mine,
Mm-hmm.
Piece of Mine, Mine. And it is a collection of short stories about Black women. Absolutely wonderful. My favorite one is called $100 and Nothing. See, this is the thing too for single child-free women. There are other women that have already charted a course from the Harlem Renaissance and beyond, from Phyllis Wheatley and above. So you are not alone. Turn off the screen, put your nose in a book, and find out about what other women are doing, and I guarantee you will find out something magnificent about yourself.
Wonderful. That's so awesome. So, oh my God. And I'm so glad you reached out to me because, like I said, I'm so glad that I have a seasoned guest on my channel to discuss, how being child free has impacted your life. This is 70. Okay. She is so gorgeous to me. She's so beautiful,
Thank you.
youthful, smiley, glowy. That child free glow is hitting you good. So, and I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate all of you guys for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up. I want you guys to like, comment, let me know what you guys think about the video, and I'm going to send you the link to the video once it airs.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
going to show
you.
it, and so that way, if you want to share with anybody else, you can. And I really appreciate all of you guys for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to be featured on my channel for a child-free interview, please send me your email request to childfreeblackwoman@yahoo.com. So, Anne, thank you again, once again, for
Thank
everything. I really
you.
appreciate your time. Please hang on. We're gonna go ahead and chit chat after this is over. But I
Okay.
wanted to just share my gratitude, just say thank you all. Thank you everybody who is watching. And again, please reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And thank you so much again. And I talk to
Thank
you guys
you.
later. Bye, Child Free fam. Thank you.
Bye.